So first off, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining in today's Ask the Expert series. We are very excited to have Michelle Gibbs and Jodi Brown here from Harneys to talk to us about corporate services and company administration in Cayman. So before we get started, a bit of background on Connect by Nova. My name is Hannah Jackson. I am the co-founder and career consultant here at Connect. We are a new social enterprise that launched in March of this year, and we are completely focused on providing careers guidance and support to individuals within our Cayman community. So that can be anything from doing weekly webinars like this to working with individuals one-on-one on their resumes, LinkedIn profiles, job searching, and their overall career action plans. So we are very excited to have this new social enterprise to be able to provide you all with this information and to provide you with a forum and a platform where you can really ask questions to the experts themselves. So I'm going to now pass it on to Michelle Gibbs to start off and introduce herself.
Great, thank you so much, Hannah. And again, welcome everyone who is attending this session today. And Hannah, thank you again very much for inviting us. We are extremely excited to be a part of this new series of Ask the Experts. As Hannah has mentioned, my name is Michelle Gibbs, and I am the Director of Corporate Services with Harneys. And my colleague, Jodi Brown, is here with me, and she is the Assistant Manager. What we're going to talk to you about today is in regards to Registered Office Services, and basically the career that you can pursue based on through that registered office service line. So just to give you a little bit more background about myself, and as we come to throughout this presentation, you'll hear a little bit more about myself and Jodi. But as starters, I'll just like to say that I have been in the corporate administration industry for over 20 years. And during that time, I have worked with 3 fantastic firms. And it was actually during my the first firm that I worked with that I became extremely interested and keen to learn more about corporate administration. And with that firm, I was actually with them for over 15 years. So a lot of my knowledge that's been gained in the industry and just experiences that I've had has mostly been with that firm. And Jodi, if you want to say a little bit about yourself and just give us sort of a quick intro as to yourself as well, please.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Hannah. Happy to be here as well. Welcome again to everyone that's joining this webinar. As Michelle mentioned, she's been in the industry over 20 years. I've just hit 15 years, and I actually met Michelle 15 years ago when I got my start in the business, so familiar faces. And I too, after my first year, I decided that it was the ideal career for me because I quite enjoyed it and there was so much to learn. And it really encouraged me to get a lot of experience working on the job in addition to pursuing education.
Great, thank you, Jodi. So what we're going to do now is to sort of start the presentation and to give you a bit of information, background information on registered office services and basically how they all came about in Cayman. The Cayman Islands have been recognized over the last 10, 20 years of being a major international financial center. And with that, there are just over 100,000 companies that are registered with the Register of Companies, which means that there are approximately 10,000 Cayman companies incorporated through this regulatory body. Every company, with the exception of what they call ordinary resident companies, are incorporated and registered in Cayman, which means that they are all required to have a registered office physically located in the island.
So once these entities are registered with the regulatory bodies, we come into play with the registered office services. There are several local firms, including Harneys, that are regulated by the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority and allowed to provide such service. So once the companies are formed and their registered office is appointed by their directors, so that we can assist them with their local obligations, which essentially means that they are kept abreast of all the changing regulations, their fees are paid on time, and if filings are made with the Cayman Islands government on time to ensure that they are in good standing at all times. As part of our role as the registered office, we are the local contact for the company. So oftentimes when they receive mail or service of anything, it'll come to us in the first instance, and we have the responsibility of making sure that it reaches our clients timely. The name and the contact details of the registered office are public information and can be found on the government website. And as registered office, the following are provided to the company. We provide a physical mailing address for the company in the Cayman Islands. We maintain their registers, and we ensure that we submit all their statutory filings with the regulatory bodies in the Cayman Islands.
So what are the opportunities then within the field? You know, what role can you play? What are the career progressions? And for us, what we have is a sort of a 6-tier role type, where you basically start your administration knowledge with us as a junior administrator. You then can progress through to a corporate administrator. The next level is a senior administrator, assistant manager, a manager, and director. And after director, there are also other additional senior roles that you can actually, take up as a career. But I've decided to just stop it at that level for now. As what you can see also is the amount of years experience that are sort of expected in regards to each role. Obviously, this is, it depends on the individual. Some individuals can progress through these different roles over a period of, let's just say, a year and a half. Others might take a little bit longer, might take up to 3 to 4 years. Basically, what we look for when it comes to progression is to ensure that when an administrator is moving up from one tier to the other, is that they have a sound understanding of the actual role that they're in at the time, and then also start grooming them into the next role that they will be progressing and moving into. So they have a bit of a feel and a bit of an understanding of what that additional role will entail, and gives them sort of the advance or ability to be able to get, like I said, a taste of that prior to actually being promoted into that next role. So, like I said, it all depends on the individual's own capabilities and how fast that they will learn. But this is basically what we consider to be the time span for each role.
Education qualifications to be considered. So there are several programs available in the Cayman Islands, ICSCA being one of them, which is directly related to the corporate services field. Of course, having an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree is also advantageous, as well as experience in the industry. I think what makes the corporate services sector so diverse is because there's several ways to really grow in the business. You could leave high school and start as a junior administrator and learn on the job all the way through to a senior or an assistant manager, as well as being able to come in with a degree and assume one of those posts without starting from the junior admin level. So it does open the door to everyone, really, because there are some people that will prefer to jump straight into the employment world as opposed to furthering their education after high school.
So there is, just before we move on there, so there is that opportunity there that you can jump into corporate services without necessarily having the background in it, right? Or being a high school student, not really knowing what corporate services is yet, but thinking, this is something I could try. And there's also different avenues you could go throughout the future. It's not just one path that you decide to take, and that's where you end up 10 years from now, type thing. Same thing on the ICSA qualification. Yeah. The ICSA qualification. So can you explain what is the ICSA qualification and where you can get that for somebody who is interested?
Jodi's just going to make her way back to that screen. But basically, ICSA basically is the Institute of Chartered Secretary and Administrators certificate or diploma. There is, several years ago, they had representatives that would be here on the island that would do training, teaching of that, for that certificate or diploma. What they are now offering is that to be offered online. There is a group out of the UK. There's also a group, an ICSA group out of Canada. The certificate and the diploma is geared towards corporate governance and compliance mainly, and they're experts in that, as well as it also provides an individual with a bit of an overview and insight into the corporate world. So it's a good way of having an individual that is, out of high school, hasn't yet gone into their bachelor's degree, that wants a bit of the understanding of what corporate work is really all about. It's a good way of doing that. There are different degrees of ICSA. It's not just also the diploma. I think there's also a master's as well that they offer. What the individuals can do is it does allow you that once you get to the diploma or the master's level, that you don't necessarily need the bachelor's degree, because what it will actually offer is such a well-rounded understanding of corporate in this particular industry that is more than sufficient.
That is great, especially for someone who doesn't want to take the traditional route of 4 years in university, or doesn't have the financial means to go to university for 4 years. So this is also a great option for them to think about other than university. So thank you.
Right. You're welcome. So what does the market look like in Cayman for positions like this? If you recall from the very first slide, we talked about the need for registered office services on the island. In other words, it is a requirement by law for there to be a company, when they're set up, to have appointed a registered office. So on that basis, that the registered office services are necessary, then it then also dictates that skilled administrators will also be required in order to help to provide that client service and to help clients with their administration of their Cayman entities. We have found, especially in the last year, for instance, just to give a good demonstration and understanding of how resilient this particular business is in the industry, is that during the COVID-19 lockdown, we were able to continue to progress as a business. We met all our budgets, et cetera, and we also were able to have our administrators work remotely without any sort of disruption when it comes to providing client service. Unfortunately, if you think about the tourism department industry, that has been affected. But what we're trying to show is that this type of service line is very solid and resilient when it comes to things even like, during the COVID situation that we're going through at this point in time. It is becoming evident, however, as businesses grow, and from the growth you're required to hire more staff, that hiring locally is becoming more and more challenging, because what we're finding is that there isn't an abundance of Caymanians that are qualified, that are knowledgeable, that are interested in becoming an administrator and filling the roles that are coming up for businesses and firms like this. So we're hoping with presentations like this and just anything of this nature, that the more that firms like ourselves can reach out to individuals like yourself to let you know, how it would be easy for you to get into a role like this is extremely important for us because it's a job that I absolutely love. And like I said, I started this 20 years ago, and later on I'll explain how I actually got into this. But it is there is that challenge right now of being able to find qualified Caymanians to fill the roles.
So again, coming off the topic of qualifications, a lot of people, sometimes they are nervous to jump into something new where they don't have any experience, but when it comes to this field, that should not be of concern because learning on the job is 80% of the job. So don't be afraid or embarrassed to start from the bottom. It's important to learn the basics, and it makes you a well-rounded manager someday, I promise you. And it's fundamental to your growth. So it's important to recognize that your success as a junior admin, senior admin is not only about your technical skills, but it is also about your personal skills. And this, again, is something that I find you will make sure that you grow in that area when you're working as opposed to going to school, because the office dynamic can be quite different to school. There's a lot to learn, and the industry is ever changing. So it's important to understand the companies and how they operate and to keep abreast of all the law changes and to ensure that you get the knowledge that you need to help your clients achieve their objectives.
So that's basically the presentation from us, but what we would really like to be able to do, and Hannah, if you have any additional questions, is to be able to just talk a little bit more about what the role actually looks like, what's involved in the day-to-day aspect of each individual role. I can, at this point, also, be able to express how I got into the corporate administration role, if you're interested in understanding that, and Jodi can share her experiences as well. Would you like for us to be able to continue in that way, Hannah?
Yeah, definitely. If you can tell your stories about how you got into corporate administration, that would be great.
Right. Okay. Happy to do that. So as I mentioned earlier, I started in the industry about 20 years ago. And I was actually approached by an individual who I worked with in another firm, And back then, it was in the late 1990s, and there wasn't a lot of understanding of what registered office services were really all about. So the individual approached me and said, we have this position. I know you know absolutely nothing about corporate services administration, but I think you have the ability to do really well. And it's a job, which Jodi has said continually throughout this presentation, that you will learn along the way. And I did. I took up the opportunity and found that I enjoyed it tremendously. What it did was, and I started as a corporate administrator, just so that everyone understands. So I didn't even start at a junior level. I started as a corporate administrator, and because of the volume of clients that we had, and them just starting up themselves, it was easy enough for us to basically work with each other and help each other through on a daily basis in being able to grow and learn on the job and be able to assist clients at the same time. And what I found was that it is a career that I have not regretted that I've taken. It's a path that I have been extremely happy about. Like I said, this is over 20 years of working in this particular industry. And I wake up every morning, and there is never a time that I've ever thought to myself, I don't want to go into work. I honestly love it. And the things that I love is the variety of work that's involved. I'm not just working with clients, but I'm also working with law firms locally on the island, accounting firms. I have a great team that works with me. The dynamics between us are extremely well, and we understand and work closely together in achieving what our clients is asking of us. The variety of work, Jodi can explain what is exactly involved in the variety of work and the type of tasks that we will receive from clients. But it's the balancing of that for me. It's being able to continue to work with clients, even if
Jodi, hold on, the sound cut off there.
Did you hear?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So Jodi can explain a little bit more about, some of the things that is expected of a corporate administrator, and to help to give a better understanding.
Okay, day-to-day tasks, essentially, as it is with most businesses, we communicate by email. So we will receive requests from clients saying that they have a company with us and they need us to update their register, or they need us to make filings with the Cayman Islands government. They'd like to change their company name. It could range from changing a director or shareholder all the way to completely restructuring the company. So at any given time, we can have a number of tasks to take care of. The important thing is to understand the task at hand and know exactly who we need to reach out to get it done. It's quite often a challenge to reach someone in the registrar because they're so busy with 10,000 companies being formed per year. So it can be quite challenging, but I think that may be part of what makes the job exciting. And you do feel a sense of fulfillment when you're able to properly satisfy your client's needs. Michelle mentioned the team. We have a wonderful team, and they are all local, and they have ranged from coming in with degrees as well as coming in as 19-year-olds fresh out of school and working their way up. And I think that's another element of our job that gives us a sense of pride. It's always rewarding to see someone grow in the business and feel like you had some part in that.
I was saying that that's fantastic to have, especially having a local team that you are building up, from the ground up, right? So you can get to see that 19-year-old that came fresh out of high school, like 5 years down the line, and their progression, right? So we do have a few questions here already. So someone has asked, as someone with administrative experience, so general admin experience, what tips would you give them to switch over into corporate administration? So they haven't been working on a corporate side, but they're interested and would like to get into the field.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, the question is someone's already in an administrative role and they want to switch over to corporate registered office. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be interesting to understand what they mean by an admin role. Basically, they're trust administrators, they're corporate administrators, and the switch between both, just to give an example, is not that difficult. It's just understanding the documentations will differ on what they will come across. But normally, and we have had individuals that have come from a trust background, for instance, and move into a corporate background, and they've been able to transition quite well in regards to taking on and being more involved with the registered office side of the business. There are similarities, so the transition is not that difficult.
Okay. And I know you mentioned earlier about remote working and how when the pandemic hit, your team was very much able to work from home and really kind of shift into that remote working lifestyle that we had. I feel like we all had to go in during lockdown if we were
Right.
able to, right?
Right.
We had no choice but to shift into that. So have you seen that there has been more flexible or more individuals in your team asking for that flexibility of remote working now that it was the norm last year, right? And now we're seeing that shift back into in-person.
Right. Well, I can get Jodi to answer that as well. Jodi, basically the question is, and I'm just repeating it so that she's understanding what has been said. The question is, because we've had the opportunity of working remotely before, and there will be a tendency of people starting to work remotely again. How do we see ourselves in being able to work in that space, and what are our plans for doing that at this point?
So working remotely can be a challenge simply because we do live on an island. Internet connectivity isn't the same for everyone. So we did notice in the pandemic that there were some staff members that were keen to come back in because it was so painfully slow at home. So what we've done as a business is we've invested a lot actually into IT and moving more towards the cloud-based system so that things can work quickly when we have to move back, if we have to move back solely to working from home. At the moment, we do have a staggered schedule where on certain days, certain members of the team are allowed to work from home. But then we know that we have that support in the office with faster internet. And if we need to physically hand in documents, then we have team members in the office that can assist us with that. So we are cognizant to the fact that that may be the way of the future. And we are putting the steps in place and getting the IT infrastructure in place to facilitate that.
And just to add, like I said, we already had that experience where the entire 100% of our staff were working remotely last year. And yes, despite the fact that there have been, depending on the individual's setup at their home, with their Wi-Fi connectivity, et cetera, they would, that their ability to be able to work faster or slower was depending on their individual home. But what we have done this year as well, and what we're doing currently at this point, is we do have team that are having staggered days where they are working. Some team individuals are working a day out of the week from home. They will alternate the days in which they do that. So we have at this point where some individuals are working remotely and then taking turns with the others of working in the office. And that seems to be going very well.
Yes.
With the team, and we have been enjoying that flexibility, and so have they. So we are, even though we're not, it isn't necessarily mandated that we have to do it, we are still working and enjoying giving the staff that flexibility of being able to work either from home or from the office.
That's great that you can offer that flexibility as well, because a lot of individuals who had that opportunity to work remote last year, now when job seeking, they're always looking for a company that has either flexi time or some agile working policy where they can work from home with it one day a week or be able to go pick up the kids and log on later on. So it is great that you're continuing with that, especially because I know that is a question that comes up quite a bit when individuals are looking for new positions or in corporate administration or things like that. Another one here, for a high school student, what, like other than high school diploma, what are the key qualities you're looking for?
For high school student, what are the key qualities we're looking for? We mentioned in one of the slides, their personal skills. So we do recognize that there will be individuals like a high school student becoming fresh out of school, high school, having absolutely no idea, or when you say to them minutes or resolutions or registers. So what we look for is their ability to be able to speak well, being able to communicate verbally as well as written. Also being an organized individual, someone that is also able to do really well with timekeeping.
because it's extremely important for the teams to be able to rely on each other. So, when it comes to an individual who doesn't, keep in mind that coming into work late or taking an extra hour or two for lunch, that it's okay, they can make it up. What they're forgetting is that it's the importance of being in at that time to be able to support the team that's actually in the office at that time and being able to help with the workload. So it's a number of personal things like that and what we call soft skills that we would be looking for individuals that are fresh out of high school, and then being able to help move them into the knowledge of corporate work. Jodi, do you want to add?
No, I think you hit it. Every time you said something, I was like, should we do it? So yes, I agree. Organization is key, timekeeping is key, and initiative. So yes, you can do your day-to-day assignments, but if you have questions, if you see anything, ask, because it could lead to your next job role.
You definitely hit the nail on the head there. So organization is key, timekeeping, asking questions. I think especially for any student or any young individual getting into the workforce, ask as many questions as you can, because you might think to yourself that that's, you're bothering the person, but it's quite the opposite. I mean, I, as a manager, much rather you ask me the question than sit there and question how to do something, like you're there to take in as much knowledge as possible. So really use that to your advantage so that you can progress quicker.
Yeah.
So
if I can just,
go ahead.
Sorry, if I can just add as well, Hannah.
Policy here at Harneys, and I've seen it, sort of welcomed and done in a lot of firms. There's an open door policy here, which, it's not just a matter of saying it, we actually do it. We have in my office where my door is kept open, and even if it isn't, there is nothing. My staff knows that they can come and knock on my door and say, Michelle, can I have a chat with you about something? It is, I've always made myself available to them. And same with Jodi, where she is, all of our senior staff members make themselves available for staff. And when someone joins us, one thing to know as well is that we have a mentor that's assigned and someone that, will help them through their 6-month probation period, someone that will be working closely with them to be that contact for them. But in addition to that, there's also myself and all the other senior people that are available. So we encourage any newcomer, whether they're experienced or not, to know that that's basically the way in which we operate here at Harneys.
A follow-up from that question actually that we had. I know you touched a bit on mentorship, which any new employee that comes in through Harneys has a mentor assigned to them for their 6-month probationary period. But internships as well. Are there internships specific in corporate administration that would be available to someone who's trying to dip their feet into the industry?
We have had school leavers that have come work with us during the summer. And I think what we've had, especially for this summer, is someone that has joined and they would work a month in a corporate department, and then they will do another month with compliance team, month with the other service lines in the fiduciary business. So they get a bit of a taste of the different areas of corporate and what makes up corporate department. So yes, that is available. And I only know at this point of us doing this during the summer because it's a longer period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the school leavers have an opportunity, because of the length of time that they're all out of school, to be able to come in and get an experience and a feel of corporate work.
Yeah, so I think based on that, the internships at Harneys would give you a well-rounded experience of all the different areas, so that you can then decide for yourself, I kind of like trust a little bit better or corporate administration, and then you can really have a feel of all the different areas rather than being in one department and that's what you do for the 3 months of the summer, right?
Yeah.
Another one here. This person has applied to a few corporate administration roles, but doesn't have minutes or resolution, like drafting minutes or resolutions experience. So what would you suggest for someone who doesn't necessarily have that experience? Is that something that they could learn on the job, or is that really something that is needed in order to?
Right. So having the experience of minutes drafting or resolutions drafting, it varies. You know, there are several firms that are linked with a law firm themselves. So fiduciary business, Harneys in particular, we have a legal team, a legal business, and we have the fiduciary business. So a lot of our business when it comes to drafting of resolutions and work that's involved with preparing minutes are actually done through a law firm. So we have templates that are available. Because we have that relationship with lawyers, when our clients are getting to a point that they require resolutions or minutes, the lawyers will be involved, and then the lawyers will help draft the necessary documentations for it. We have, however, both Jodi and myself have also worked with a firm where there's no legal business that's associated with the fiduciary side of the business. And again, what we've done is have the experienced senior administrators prepare draft resolutions that it is available for specific transactions. So we will have a template available for appointing a director, resigning a director, transferring shares, etc. So we have that as part of our template packages that are available for the staff. In addition to that, though, we do want to ensure that our administrators are well-rounded. So what we will do, in addition to having those templates, is teach them how to prepare draft and resolutions. And I think once you do that, because both of ourselves, like I said, when we started into this industry, we never had that experience either. But it's a matter of seeing them, because you will see resolutions and minutes that will come across your desk constantly throughout the day. You understand the structure of it. You understand basically how it's set up and the layout of a set of resolutions and minutes. And you learn through trial and error of how to do this properly. And that's what we will help administrators do in the event that is required. We will help them be able to draft it. And, ask them, you prepare it, you bring it back to us, let's take a look at it together, and then we can explain to you how to amend it. That's how we operate. And that's what I've seen actually happen with most firms that I've worked with. Is there anything you want to add to that, Jodi?
In saying that, we do have a few soft courses that will give you guidelines on drafting minutes and resolutions, just things to look for, certain wording that is frequently used. So there are like tips and tricks on doing minutes and resolutions drafting. But other than that, the industry has come a long way in the last 15, 20 years. So there are a lot of systems that, again, as Michelle said, legal will go ahead and prepare it because it's such a frequent transaction, and they'll have that added to the templates, and it's literally a click of a button that generates it. It just, you have to alter it to the information that relates to that particular transaction.
And then thank you for that, by the way. I think we have one more question just before we close out. Size of portfolios that a corporate administrator would usually manage?
Okay. It's funny. There's been even when I interview individuals for the role of having a size, or whether there is a requirement to have a size of portfolios to administer. What I've seen within the business as a trend is that there's anywhere between, I think, 250 to 300 companies, 350, where an administrator would be required to be responsible for that particular portfolio. However, there's also a trend where a lot of firms I've seen that are basically moving away from that. They're not necessarily having an assigned portfolio to an individual any longer, because people come and go. people, what you don't want is your clients to be in a position where you're the only one that has the information on their companies and what's been happening with them. And even though there might be sort of shared knowledge across the floor with the administrators and the setting up of those portfolios where it can take care of any sort of illnesses or vacations or anything like that, I think what we tend to see is having it in a set up in a way where there's a pool of administrators sharing all of the clients and basically having the information shared among the groups in that way. And clients are then also understanding and working with not just one administrator, but making sure that they're comfortable and getting consistency and same standard of work and quality from all of our administrators. So training staff is really important for us, and making sure that the same type and quality of work that we're extending to our clients are being done exactly the same across the board. And we found that working with this pool of administrators, working on all our company clients seems to work. It also helps with the level of workload. So there might be some portfolios we found where they were over, active, and where they were, the administrator had a portfolio that they were working until 8, 9 o'clock at night, for instance, because that portfolio was so active. And yet there's another portfolio that's extremely slow and the individuals are, not as busy. So we wanted, again, to be able to balance that workload. And we found with having all administrators involved in all types of work, with all types of clients, it seemed to have been the best model for us, and one that we found has worked.
Yeah. It reduces the interruption in service should someone leave, should someone be out ill. So as opposed to encouraging clients to email an individual, we'll have them email a team ring. And at any given day, someone from that team will come back to you. If we find that a client is particular with who they deal with, we still encourage them to use that ring, again, for the same interruption of service reasons. But where possible, we will, of course, try to ensure that they get the administrator that they do most of their work with, because they just get comfortable with someone and prefer that. But we have found that it's minimized the need to change out of offices, ensure that auto forwarding is on by implementing the email system where you email a email ring as opposed to an individual.
Yeah, and you're completely right with that sense that it maintains the quality of the service, right? Because if somebody's out sick or somebody's on the annual leave and you get there out of office, right? At least when you have an email that 2 or 3 members of the team are CC'd in, one of them will get back.
Exactly.
Right? Within the time frame. So that does keep up the level of service as well, but also keeps everyone in the loop should someone be out.
Exactly.
Which is good. I think those are all the questions we have at this time. Let me just double check the Q&A, see if there's anything else here. Okay, so one more here. This individual has been trying for the past few years to break into the field. They do have their IGSA, their LLB, and their LLM, but cannot seem to land an interview. My guess is they don't have the experience, but they do have the qualifications. So what would be your piece of advice to help them get into the field?
I think under promise and over deliver. I would still encourage that individual to start as a corporate administrator, because a lot of the time you have huge knowledge that you've gotten from education, and still you need to get some on-the-job experience. And it's difficult because you have individuals with all the promise in the world, and sometimes they're just placed in the wrong role, and it doesn't give them the opportunity to shine. So I think when you come in, even at a junior level, you give yourself the opportunity to show exactly how good you are, and you can come in and pick things up much quicker. And as Michelle said, that will be that will depend on how quickly you move up the ladder. So someone may have expected that it would take 2 years, but you, of course, have the exposure of having your ICSA and that background knowledge. So you, of course, may come in and perform above level and be easily promoted to the next role. So I think that it would be important still to get some hands-on training, on the job training, even though that you have those qualifications. And I'm certain that once you do get in, those qualifications will come into play, and then you will move up the ladder much quicker than anticipated.
Any tips on how to get in if they're having difficulties to land a job?
Having difficulty landing a job, I see that's always hard for me to believe because it's always in the paper. But I think I would suggest to apply everywhere, of course, even if you feel sometimes we psych ourselves out and we read a job description and we decide that, oh, I don't have this isn't for me, I don't meet this criteria. I say try, apply, because a lot of the time the decision is made in the interview. So it might not be exactly what they wanted on paper, but you may come in and impress them so well that they would still be willing to give it a shot. So my number one tip would be to apply irrespective of your doubts, because sometimes you aren't necessarily right. You may go in and you may surprise them. And maybe the one thing that you didn't have on that list wasn't mandatory. It was just something that they were hopeful for. So I would encourage you to apply. And one thing I find refreshing that actually doesn't happen very often, I had an interview last year and the individual followed up. I think that was very impressive and brave, out of this world, to follow up, just to say, just dropping you a line. It was lovely to meet you, and, I hope to hear from you. I think something like that could push you over the edge. If you and another candidate are the last two and they're struggling to make the decision, that last bit of reach out really could be the final touch that gets you selected. So again, I would apply, and initiative and personalize your interaction. That I think will always make you stand out when it comes to interviewing or getting a job.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more thing to what Jodi has said. I get a lot of resumes across my desk, and the ones that actually catch my eye are the ones that you can feel their personality in their cover letter. The individual, you can just read from that cover letter. It gives you a taste of what that person might be like, and it piques your interest. So I think your resume, maybe have someone take a look at your resume just to make sure that it's covering all the right points for you, as well as your cover letter, and making sure that it's not just a sort of usual standard cover letter. It's something that will actually help to highlight who you are as an individual to somebody that has never met you. And then in being able to pass that hurdle, then getting into the interview itself, again, just tips on interviews, to try to be as natural and as calm as you possibly can be. I know it's nerve-wracking when you're going in for an interview, but just remember that it's a two-way street when you're being interviewed. It's not just you that is sitting there answering questions and listening, but it's also happening on the other end. So it's both parties working together, answering questions, understanding things about each other, because you do have a right, when you're being interviewed, to find out about the firm that you're going to be working with, or that you're interested in. And you have the right to be able to ask questions and to get to know more about that firm. And in doing that, then it helps the person that's interviewing you to also realize that you do really have an interest about the firm, and you are, answering questions and thinking about basically what your role will be and what the firm can offer you. So I think things like that will also help with trying to land a job.
Yeah, and definitely just to add on to that, you may not be picked up, right, because of your resume, right? And that's something that connect offers. And that's something that we're so passionate about, is making sure that you're putting your best foot forward and showcasing your skills, you know, because sometimes it simply is the fact that your resume isn't laid out and your education might not be at the top, right? Because you have so much education. So just those little details make all the difference, especially when you're sending through a resume, because we all know that we don't just get 2 resumes on our desk, we get 50, 100, right? So we're not just looking at 3 people at a time. We have all of these different resumes to look through. So whatever you can do to make yourself shine through that resume and cover letter will make a difference. And if that's something that anyone who's on this call is interested in chatting to me more about, feel free to send me an email. I'm always more than happy to take a look at your resume if you're working on it, or even when it comes to interviews and you need interview prep. We also do weekly trainings on those topics as well. So I think that's it for questions. For now, I'm going to let you both go because you're both busy ladies and you do have to get back to managing the teams. But thank you so much for today and for this presentation. It has been very informative for everyone who's logged on, and I'm sure all the students who will log on later on when they're not at their lunch break. But any last thoughts that you want to add before we close out?
Just to say that Jodi and I are very happy to have been able to be a part of this presentation with you today, and be happy if there's ever a requirement or a need for you to have us back to answer any additional questions. Seminar like this, if you want to, could be happy to be a part of it. The one thing that I want to leave for anyone that is listening to this presentation today is it's really important to find that career that you absolutely love, because it makes such a huge difference with how you progress and basically how you continue to excel. It's not always a easy way or a fast way to be able to do that. Sometimes you have to go through different types of careers in order to find that right one for you. But once you do, I think it's going to be such a rewarding feeling for you as an individual. And I wish every one of you that opportunity and that success in being able to find that right career for you.
No, I just agree with what Michelle said, because they do say that once you find a job you love, you never work a day in your life. And, you know, corporate could be that for you. So if you think it is, you should definitely give it a try, because it turned out to be just that for Michelle and I.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate your time, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Thank you. The same with you, Hannah. Thank you very much.